He said, I love them, but I don't like them. And he's like, oh, and then the crowd's like, whoa. And he's like, oh, don't you get that way with me. You know one thing, you'll cry at their funeral, but you don't want to go on vacation with them.
This is how stupid people succeed. I'm Josh. This is Jeremy. It's not the intro we wanted, but it's what we got.
That's the great summary.
Yes.
It's not what you wanted, but it's
That's what you got. Make sure you like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Make sure you comment and share this with somebody you think may get something out of this podcast.
Even if they don't, do it anyway. This isn't about people getting anything out of it. This is just about just subscribe.
Just listen to two dumb people chat.
It'll at least make you feel better about yourself. That's for sure.
That's true.
Yeah.
We're very good at that, actually.
Yeah. So if you need to feel better about yourself, if you know somebody going through a hard time, say, check out these two guys. They're making it. They're doing it.
So,
You
Jeremy,
can too.
when I go to a movie and I have my kids, I like to sit in the very front row. So
What are you doing? What are you doing?
I'm trying to set you up with a topic.
No, but that you don't have to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish your story.
Ladies and
I wanna hear
gentlemen,
this.
Jeremy Dunn knows everything.
No,
so he wants to
false.
start this. Stop.
All right, fine. On a wonderful night in 1983.
Yeah, he knows.
I just brushed the mic.
That's all right.
I'm gonna get shot by our
fix it.
producer.
Yeah.
He's
Little.
gonna be so mad.
Should we give him a little shout out right now?
You can if you want.
Yeah. Little. That guy. I don't know his name. I forget his name.
Are you done?
Yeah. No. He is a great job. He's behind the camera right now. He's not even waving. He's just embarrassed that I'm even talking about him right now.
We should earmark. We should create a designation on the titles of podcasts for which ones we believe Josh had a stroke in. So that way, when it's severe enough, we can at least show your doctor, like, hey, doc, go to our podcast page, go through it. The ones marked with X, we're pretty sure. At least that way, it'll help your medical history.
Yeah.
Because nobody's recording that. Nobody's like,
Hopefully they subscribe on Apple though.
Yeah, your doctor's like, hey, listen, dude. Yeah. So we're talking about building your front row.
Front row.
Incredible exercise. Very, very few people take seriously.
Yes.
So when I say building your front row, what does that mean to you, or what are you thinking about?
I thought I was going to a movie.
You're going to a movie.
Yeah, sit in the front row.
No, you're not. No.
You got to buy those seats.
So if you ever presented on a stage with lights,
Yeah.
right, you realize that the vast majority of the crowd gets washed out in the lights.
Yes.
So you can really only see maybe 3-5 rows in. So the whole idea about building your front row is saying your life, let's just pretend your life is this presentation and you're living it out on a stage.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people get washed out in the light of life. Just you won't have that close an intimate relationship with them. They'll, maybe some friends, maybe some family, maybe some acquaintances, maybe some colleagues, but they're never intimately close to you. So then think about it on the people that you can see standing on that stage. Who is your front row? So I have to give a shout out before we go any further to, and I've referenced him before, but I'll reference him again and probably will continue to reference him, but the great Matt Marvin, who kind of taught me this and taught me the value in it of building your front row. So
You should tag him on this podcast.
I should. So when you're presenting and you can't see the crowd, but you can see the people in your front row, that's who you're reading.
Yeah.
So when you're living life and you're gauging, or you're presenting in front of a public audience and you're gauging, how am I doing? Your read is really on those first 3 rows.
Yeah.
And what read are you getting? Because it's going to greatly affect how you present. So now play that into life.
Yeah.
The people that you're looking at the most and you're putting in your front row of your life and you're looking at, how are they reading what I'm doing? Are they approving? Are they not approving? Do I need to change something? Do I need to not change something? They have significant influence in your life. Now, unlike a presentation, most times you can't dictate who's sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
But in life, you can dictate who's sitting there.
Oh, yeah.
Not literally, but figuratively. And with the connection of technology, you can have face-to-face time with anybody in any of the different formats. So for me personally, it's a little bit of an exercise to constantly cycle and evaluate who's in my front row. Who can I assign to be close to watch my life that I know has my best interest? Because sometimes there are times where I have done something stupid and I read their
No.
face and I read kind of the, what are you thinking there? And it allows me to feel that accountability and reflect. It's not, the front row is not just people that always applaud you, but it's the people that have this incredible gauge of, an authentic desire to see you succeed in the right way.
Yeah.
So have you ever gone through something like that where you're like, okay, I'm gonna be intentional about who's on my front row?
100%.
And how do you go about doing that?
It's a lot of it, honestly, is trial and error. It's people you have the opportunity to do life with, and you have a lot of shared experiences, and then you can gauge, you can discern kind of their motives or their intentions when it comes to a lot of things in life. Like I kind of look at it as, so, you talked about the first 3 rows. I'd see it as more of like, kind of tiers, that front row.
Yeah.
That front row is people like my family, you and your family, those people that I'm like super close with, I'm tight knit with. And then obviously, the second row is, other mentors in my life that I know have my best interest in mind. Things like that, as you keep kind of going back and back and back. But you can't surround yourself with honestly too many really close people, because everything kind of gets diluted, right?
Yeah.
And one thing, at least on the business standpoint of it, it's been easier for me to think about it in the business way and then reflect on my personal life of who I have in that front row.
Yeah.
Because in sales, you kind of talk about your sphere of influence. People, I know them, they know me. We're in Kroger. They, we can have a conversation. We know about each other, right? But then there's those people like we know like intimate things about them, and those are the people that have my best interest in mind. I have their best interest in mind, and which everyone, I'll say everyone, 99% of the people, I have their best interest in mind. Obviously there are a few little strays out there, but but I wonder what that number would be out of the people that I know and in my sphere of influence. How many of them genuinely know that or genuinely can reciprocate that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
That would be interesting to find out.
Yeah, reciprocating it is rare.
Yeah,
very rare.
But when you get that reciprocating, just like for me and you, for instance, right? You reciprocate it. I do. Obviously, we're on each other's front rows, right? But there are other people that I think don't really give that feedback like we'd want, maybe as quickly as we'd want. And then so they're not so they're out there, but they're not quite in those front couple rows.
Yeah. There's a lot of people out in the audience for sure, but I think you have to be honest with yourself about who's there.
Oh yeah.
And you have to be very active and intentional in engaging that, because your front row 5 years ago, 10 years ago should not be the same front row.
No.
There may be some of the same people, but it shouldn't be all the same people, because you should be progressing and growing through life. And it's not about being better or worse than anybody. It's just at certain stages of life, certain people hit each other in different periods. So I've had some mentors that there were very intense mentorship relationships for a period of time, and they were absolutely my front row. They're not my front row anymore. And it's not a right, wrong, indifferent. It's just that for that period of time, we were incredibly close and there was a mentorship relationship. So for example, I have 2 professors from my undergraduate days that I've maintained a great relationship with. They're probably in the second or third row, but there was a time, when I was at school, and then a couple years after that, they were absolutely in my front row. I knew that they valued me and they had my best, my best in their heart, and they were trying to help me and mentor me. But also in keeping people in your front row, going through that, being selective, being intentional, but also being very active about it.
Yeah.
A lot of people won't say what they need to say or say what maybe can help you get better unless you give them an opportunity to say it.
Yeah.
Relationship and openness has a lot to do with that. So most people won't just come up to you like, hey man, you're doing this wrong. Let me tell you how to do it. And if they did, you would probably look at them like they're crazy. But if you sit down with some level of humility and you go, hey, I just want to tell you, you're somebody I think is in my front row. I think this is how you feel about me. I think this is how you think about me. I think you're close enough to my life that you observe it, or you're at least wise enough that I can share things with you, and you'll help me interpret it, and you'll help me produce the best out of my life. So with that, I'm going to open it up to you. What do you see in me? Right? Are there faults? Are there gaps? Is there something that, there's a mistake you seeing develop? Or sometimes it can kind of be a build-up thing, right? It can go back to, how you're managing stress. So like me and you had a conversation, not too long ago where I told you, like, dude, you need to take time off. You need to take time off because what I see building up is not going to end well.
Yeah.
Right. And you were just going, too much all the time. And it was like your own self was just kind of like your brain, your brain bandwidth was just kind of going away and all those different things. And especially when I saw you speed in front of me and then cut off a police officer, I was like, I called you and I'm like, dude, you just cut off a police officer. Like, no, I didn't. I'm like, look in your blind spot. And you're like, holy crap, I just cut off a police officer. It's like, those things can happen.
Yeah.
But you need people in your front row
that
you can receive from, that you can that can receive from you. So then on the flip side, not just how you evaluate your front row, but then how do you navigate you being in somebody else's front row?
For me, excuse me. For me, it just becomes, whether I'm on somebody's front row or not it's really irrelevant to me for the most part. But, every relationship that I have, I want to be as authentic as I can be. Mm-hmm. And that authenticity usually breeds really good relationships for the most part. Some people don't want you to be authentic, and that's fine. But, the more authentic you are, the more real things you can share, the closer you can be. Therefore, being on that front row becomes just a side effect of that authenticity and that relationships that you have.
Mm-hmm. So have you ever felt like, so how do you handle a situation where that person needs you to be on their front row, but for whatever reason, there's some restriction in the exposure they're willing to create for themselves for you to really be that for them?
It all comes down to just giving the value. So everything I want to do in life is I want to add value to people, whether it's, personal, professional, in church or whatever. Just, I want to add value to the people that I'm surrounded with day in or day out, whether I'm on their front row, they're on mine. It doesn't really matter. I want to add that value, and I want to be as authentic as I can. Mm-hmm. So eventually, I think people, for the most part, they're really good at appreciating the authenticity, but then being receptive when they know you're being authentic. And when you're sharing true colors instead of the facade of, hey, you should do this because it's all rainbows and unicorns.
Right.
If you say, hey, you sit down, you have a actual conversation with them, and they have to be willing to do so too.
Yeah.
If they're not willing to sit down and say, hey, you're being an idiot, or maybe you want to navigate this situation in this realm, it's really irrelevant.
Right.
So, like, I still make some, in your opinion, I'm sure you would say I make some pretty dumb decisions. I do occasionally, but I'm at least willing to sit down and I'm willing to hear you out, and I know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And that is a determining factor in some of the things that I do.
Right. And it should be, because none of us are set out to nail this. None of us are set out to be perfect in this. We're all going to think we know. We're all going to have a perspective. And the more trusted people with wisdom and knowledge and experience that we surround ourselves with, it really helps us navigate that. Now, there are times where you may hear somebody tell you something, it may be business advice, maybe whatever, and everything in you saying, you have to go this opposite way. You have to go try this. And that's okay. Because if they're really in your front row, they'll understand the moments where you got to kind of go rogue and do your thing. And I'm not saying that in a negative way, but I'm saying there are times where you may be a visionary for somebody. You may just be overly passionate about something, and you may hold the vision for that thing to be successful. And when you hold the vision for it and you hold the passion for it, you better believe you're going to need a strong front row to help you work through that. Yeah. I see a lot of people that their vision and passion just ends up with basically them being frustrated, working alone and unable to move forward because now they're bogged down, but it's because they didn't build that around them through that time period. So I think one of the good challenges in this is saying, okay, if you haven't done it recently, evaluate who's in my front row. Who are the people that are actively observing in my life that I trust them to share their opinion with me about just about anything in my life. And then even, and it feels goofy, feels a little weird, be intentional also about telling them that. Hey, you're in my front row. You're somebody that I know that I can trust, and I'm opening my life up to you. So if you see anything, if you feel anything, if you sense anything, whatever, please talk to me about it. If you want to share encouragement, please encourage me. And it's so funny because at times I'll pick up my phone and I think about that. And then all of a sudden I get like nervous and hesitant to share something positive, which is this really weird, common human thing.
I mean, you love to toot your own horn, though.
What is wrong with you? But, let's say I want to reach out to him, but I just want to encourage you. Like all of a sudden I get I get hesitant towards that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But at no point in my life have I woke up and I have a text on my phone and it's you or a friend or whatever saying, hey man, thinking about you, praying for you. You're awesome. And I think, man, that jerk, he really needs to stop texting me. You know what I mean? But it's like, that's the way you feel like, oh, he's not going to like that. He's not going to appreciate, he's going to think I'm stupid or whatever. But it's like, no, that's just not true.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, identify people that you feel like, or you have some sense of accountability to, I want to be in their front row.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be somebody that they know is there for them. And then figure out little action items to take to where you can demonstrate to them, hey, I'm in your front row. I'm going to cheer you on. I'm going to be there for you. And when you do that, what's crazy is there's a lot of confidence that comes from that. There's a lot of energy that comes from that. I know just this past week, and I text you and I text several of our other friends, but a song came on the radio, and it's Click by Kanye, and there's a whole bunch of other people on that track. But as I was listening to the song, it motivated me because I looked at all the great men in my front row, and it's like we all live with that same level of intentionality. And here I am driving to work Monday morning, and I'm like, I'm fired up to be successful now because I know they're not going to slip on their success. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let them know how much I use them as an inspiration for my life, which in turn, from somebody that received the text, I'm going to assume reciprocates a little bit of the same thing for you, where you go, oh, okay. He just sent me this track, click, boom, Apple pulls it up. I read the text, now I'm in that kind of same vibe. And just with a simple text, a simple prayer, simple thought, whatever, 8, 10 guys or however many guys it was, everybody's water level is raised. Yeah. And we're all on some kind of weird rotunda in each other's front row, but also on our own stage, cheering everybody on.
Yeah.
Which I think life is definitely way too short of cheering people on.
I think one of the great things about life, and you kind of equate it to the front row, it's finding those teammates that can be a part of your life and be able to do life with well.
Yeah.
Like having those people that you got their back, they got yours. That's what it's about.
For sure.
Cool. So, wrapping it up?
Yeah, man.
Cool. This is how stupid people succeed. I'm Josh Cooper. This is Jeremy Dunn, and he loves our outros. So make sure, tag somebody who is in your front row. Let them know that.
Tag them.
Let them know that you're in their front row or they're in your front row. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Tag them. Like the podcast. Subscribe to it on Apple, Spotify,
Don't be a back
YouTube.
row critic. That's another episode.
Ooh,
that'll preach.
Oh, sit in
Don't
the
be
back.
a back. Yeah, people in the back row. Don't let them get in your front row.
Ooh.
I'm just saying. Tune in next time.
Snakes. Take care, guys.